Topic 1. Stop fueling racism. Racism isn't just a system, it's a narrative, and language plays a major role in keeping that narrative alive. When we continuously identify as black or white Americans, we feed separation. But if we reframe and view ourselves as Americans of African or European descent, we shift the focus from division to unity. This segment explores how changing our language could shift perceptions and challenge institutional biases in real time. Let's dive in. I'm your boy Quattro,
I'm Diesel.
and we got a great topic, and let's dive into it.
Yeah.
Do you consider yourself a black man?
I mean, I'm considered a black man, just like you're considered a black woman,
Right.
but we're just Americans.
You said don't call me black no
If we
more.
go to Africa right now, what they gonna call us? Americans.
Black Americans.
They're gonna call us Americans,
And so, are you?
and they do call us Americans when they're here. They call us Americans. Now they call us certain things because we want to be called them. We're like, call
Like
me black.
brother.
They want to call you black because they want you, they think you want to be called black because you're just talking about Black Lives Matter and I'm black and I'm proud and of course they watching you and they're like, hey, that's a black person. But when they're talking amongst themselves, and I've heard these people, I've heard their conversations in Mexico and different people, they call us Americans no matter where we go. If we go to China, they call us Americans. It could be me and you standing with two other people we call white here, and they call us all Americans. You can call yourself Irish all you want.
Are you okay? So
But I'm gonna tell you now, you go to Ireland, they're gonna call you American. You don't fit in their culture. You're not.
So now y'all see, what we putting down in this segment.
Mm-hmm.
If we shift our narrative to unifying as Americans, I think it would change a lot of perceptions and a lot of uh, animosity and a lot of anger that derives from the separation of black versus white.
I agree.
You know,
I agree. So it all begin. It all begins with language, and we have to start realizing that just because some rich Virginians back in 1676 decided that they wanted to quash any rebellions between the alliance between the, as they say, the African and Europeans of that were there. You're indentured, you're enslaved, and there was one more category, but there were
hmm
these three categories of individuals, and obviously they had the numbers.
hmm
But the whole concept of white was invented specifically to align the Europeans that were the enslaved, the indentured, and the feeble. I think that was one, or like the sickly or something like
hmm
that.
hmm
But all those people, they wanted to get them on their side, them being the aristocrats, the landowners at the time. So they invented whiteness in order to get the numbers on their side. And so we have to be mindful of that moving forward and realize that at this point we're all Americans.
For sure. And even furthermore, I've traveled all over the world, and one thing I've noticed, like the guy said in the video, we're referred to as Americans all over the world. There's no black Americans or you're African American. They don't say that at all. They view us as Americans. Period. You can go to South Africa, you can go to France, go to the tip of France. You can go wherever you want to go to the mountains. You can go to wherever. They're gonna refer once you open your mouth and you start talking. They're like, oh, you must be an American, and that's where they leave it at. There's no, oh, you're American. Oh, are you African American? Oh, are you a white American? No, it's American, and I think we need to take heed to that and really like try to change the language around it.
Like you said, whether it's the tip of France, the top of the Swiss Alps, or Mount Everest, we all Americans to all them people. And we have to be now mindful of, again, our language, because when we are using terms like black, white to identify ourselves, we're creating the lines of division. We are fueling this quote unquote racism, which is really a byproduct of the real quote unquote war, which is classism.
Right.
And so we have to be mindful of this, ladies and gentlemen, and start using better language to identify ourselves so that we can again change the narrative
Mm-hmm.
and be, more unified as opposed to trying to find reasons to divide. Because like they say, in sports, as a hand, you're very weak. If you try to strike, you could break a hand. I mean, break a finger.
Mm-hmm.
But when you unite as that fist, what I'm saying, you can basically break through walls.
Yeah, you could hurt
And
something.
so by calling ourselves Americans, that's the fist. But the
Mm-hmm.
more we're black or we're white, which is really actually the only two colors, because we don't call quote unquote other races. For example, let's just say Asians. We don't call them yellow people.
No,
We don't call quote unquote Indians red
red people.
people.
No, we don't.
We are the only two quote unquote groups in this country, those of European descent, those of quote unquote Native American descent, as well as African descent. We're the only two people who call ourselves white and black without consciously being aware of how it's dividing us solely on language.
It's definitely dividing us. I was just on on YouTube scrolling, and I just noticed how here in America, everything is, oh, white versus black, white versus black, white
Hmm.
versus black, and then I reflect on the other countries. That's not in their media.
Yeah,
It's not the dark Indian versus the lighter Indian. There is classism. Don't get me wrong.
of course.
But I'm saying that,
Caste system
yeah,
over there.
yeah, caste system, and but they're not. That's not what they focus on. They actually, they're focus on the class.
Hmm.
But here, and so to implement what we're saying, so look at the whole uh, Carmelo Anthony and the Hunter guy.
Right.
Now, if you look at that, now the way we've been looking at it here in America, the black guy stabbed the white guy. So now you got all these echo chambers on TikTok and all these platforms, and they want, oh, white, white, white. Oh, the black, black, black. Oh no, black, black. Oh no, white, white. That's literally all you hear.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And if we just change the language a little bit and we look at one American stabbing another American, we're able to get to the root of the issue without being sidetracked by this fluff of white versus black. It just helps you look at the situation for what it is and take all that bullshit out the way. Even with the other incident with the lady that called the young kid, you know, um, a young N word or whatever the case may be, and then the whole narrative on social media was, oh, the white lady talking to a black child like that. No, the American lady was talking to a younger American kid, and so when you set it up like that, it kind of like, oh, like we could focus on the issue. Like, you shouldn't be talking to no kid like that. You can't label or discriminate or be mad for a kid being a kid. The kid don't know no better. But the fact that we done set it up in this country that white versus black, now the whole narrative is the white woman said something to a black kid. It's like, no, we got to change that. And I think when we change that, it'll change our culture and our society.
The language changing is going to humanize
Yeah,
two
that's what I was trying to get.
individuals.
Yeah,
That's what's going to
it
happen.
humanizes us. Yeah,
But that's what we seem to be against.
yeah.
And from my perspective, like that's the only reason why we still identify as black and white, because we're trying to dehumanize each other.
Hmm.
And so when we look at it as an American on American now, again, that brings some sort of human component to the situation.
Exactly.
And now you can look at it, rationally, practically, reasonably, morally,
Right.
and be able to really come to a just quote unquote justifiable conclusion, so justice is served.
Hmm.
But when we look at it as black and white based upon the dynamics that we in, because again, we ain't dumb. So yes, this is America,
Hmm.
a country that was founded by tyrants.
Hmm.
And at the time, we as quote unquote black people weren't considered human. We
Hmm.
were literally considered three-fifths of a man. And so that's what I mean by the dehumanization aspect of black and
Exactly.
white.
Exactly.
And so now that we understand that, we have to now move forward and realize that it's on us, because again, we the people,
Right.
we are the people, regardless of the history of the country. We the people, we have our rights or civil liberties on paper. Got a social security card, you know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? We got driver's license, so we have access to the same rights that any other quote unquote American has access to.
Exactly.
But it's on us to, awake ourselves from this racist slumber of black and white, so that
Hmm.
we can start quote unquote unifying and moving the nation forward.
Yeah, I mean, because we are more Americans than Africans, so to speak. Um,
I've never been to Africa, and I've only been to Mexico. But back to that point you made earlier, I was an American to them. I
yes,
wasn't
you
a
are.
black guy. I wasn't a black American. I was just an American.
And I've been to Africa. I've been to two countries in Africa, and I'm on my way back there in August. I'll be going to Nigeria. I've been to Joburg and I've been to Cape Town. And like you said,
You're an
you
American.
yes, you are an American, very much so an American. And Raven Simone was saying this years ago, and she got a lot of flack. And then when I go back and listen to it now, after being enlightened, I understand even more so what she was saying and how she was feeling. She's like, I'm an American. She's like my father and my mother were born in America.
Hmm.
My grandparents were born in America. My great grandparents was born in America. Like how many generations have to be born in the land before you're of that land? And then Diesel right here, he could take his family lineage back to
The early
1800s.
1800s, yeah, the early 1800s. And again, so Americans, to my knowledge, the last one that we can record on paper, he was born in America. I'm an American. Now, that's just not to say we're diluting or disappearing our quote unquote culture or
Mm-mm,
heritage,
not at all.
because the reality is a lot of us, there's some school of thoughts who believe that the majority of us were here before quote unquote the slave trade ever began in America and the
Yeah,
New World.
yeah, yeah.
And when we look at certain pictures, from these quote unquote Native Americans, they have very resembling images to quote unquote individuals we call African Americans today.
They sure do. And
But they were native.
to prove that point even further, I think there was some percentage where they were saying only 8%, let's say roughly around ten
I
percent.
think we got a clip.
Scientists and researchers have recently discovered that only 8% of the African Americans that are here were actually brought here through the slave trade from Africa. This means that 92% of the people, of the African Americans that are here, were already here. They were Native Americans, native to North America. This is a powerful revelation. We are Native Americans, not African Americans. You get it? You got it? Good. Have a blessed
To prove the point, like he was saying, only about 8% of the Africans that were brought over here during the slave trade made it to the actual place we call the U.S., the United States. The rest of them went in other places, and I had an actual revelation when I went to Cartagena, South America. I went to a place called Palenque, and that was supposed to be like one of the first places where the Africans were brought to, and because they say, like you said, only 8% went up to what we call America. The 92% went South America, Jamaica, Haiti, all those places, right? And so when I went to Palenque, and we went to this town, and everyone was still, they looked like Africans. They looked like they came from Africa, from the motherland. Like, and then so it made me think about how we look in America, how we our melanin and complexions and things kind of change drastically, and our features change drastically, which makes me think that there were uh, other races here, like they were saying before they came over here, and we might be more in line with Native Americans. Because nobody knows what's the accurate name to call. So we're just saying Native Americans. So our roots probably more so than not are probably traced back to the Native Americans that was in this area and Mexicans compared to actually uh, Africans, because the majority of the Africans went to other places other than Africa. I mean, other than America, and that's why the plantations in America, you don't hear this. All the plantations in America, there was few that had slaves doing the cotton, and that they were prevalent, but the ones that made the most money were the breeding ones, were the breeding plantations, and so you put all that into your brain, and you make an educational uh thought, or you come up with some type of consensus on everything, like so with all that being said, it just makes me understand that we're Americans.
Hmm.
Like, we are Americans. Like, we can't claim that we're Africans. We can't claim that we're Native Americans, so to speak. We can't claim that we're Mexicans. We are Americans and been here for generations and generations and generations and generations. And and we do have a culture amongst ourselves as quote unquote Americans of African descent. We do have a culture. We're not denying that, but we need to understand that we're Americans first, because when they're approaching Congress and the Senate floor and stuff like that, and they're trying to get legislation, that's why we kind of shoot ourselves in the foot, because there's no such thing as Black Americans. There's no culture for that. That's why it's easy for the Asian community to get legislation passed, because that's a legitimate group of people. Like, Asian people that have a continent and a country behind them, so they have to honor that. But we keep going talking about we're blacks, and black ain't nothing but a color. You know what I'm saying? But if we come up, like, as Americans, we have to we deserve the rights of the Constitution, the rights of the Bill of Rights, and the Declaration of Independence. Like, we're included in that. Even though we wasn't when it was created, but it need to be ratified to include all of us as Americans.
Hmm. I think what we have to be mindful of as well is the fact that until we start using better language to identify ourselves as, we're going to continue to keep the quote unquote story alive of us as quote unquote black people, being descendants of slaves. And no one uses that as well, no one uses that pain as fuel to be, great. We use it as fuel to be, mediocre, or to make
Mm,
excuses.
right.
So that's what we have to start understanding, is that, for those of us who are considered quote unquote African American, Black American, we have to really be conscious of the fact that this is just a story that they told us.
Right.
We can only speculate, where we quote unquote come from at this point. But
Hmm.
there is science that says out of all the African Americans in America, only 8% of them really have the roots, or descendants of Africa. And so, with that being said, 92% of those individuals of us was already here. As you said, we've been here for generations. So we have to start really understanding that, this place is ours too. This land ain't got no owners but those who walk on it. And so we
Mm.
was here. This is our land just as much as anyone else's, just as
And we
the
st-
quote
and we
unquote
still
colonizers.
and we still here and ain't going nowhere.
And we're not going nowhere. So again, it starts with we the people, us using better language to identify ourselves, and letting go of that story of struggle, as quote unquote Black Americans or African Americans. And because again, I vividly remember growing up being told that story of, you were descendant of a slave,
Oh
and
yeah, they still saying that.
right, and that's your history. But I remember I had a teacher
CRT.
in Miss Brown, like in my first or second grade when I was going to a private school, and she was very adamant about telling us, like, no, your history begins well before, slavery. And then she would always make sure she taught us about, Africa. Egypt is what I remember the most. But it was her that got me realizing like, okay, I'm more than just a slave. I can see myself beyond being a slave, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And then as I got older, obviously, and I did my genealogy and saw that, you know, my furthest back descendant was, you know, early 1800s. I'm able to connect those dots and realize like, okay, I know that there was a place for us before, you
Yeah.
know, this quote unquote station of you know, chattel slavery, you know, hit these shores and these lands. And again, it's on us to use better language to make sure that we are identifying properly as Americans.
Mm-hmm.
And again, we're not discounting our culture, because the science does say the first quote unquote human being did come from Africa.
Yeah.
So technically, we are African in that
That
regards.
right.
However, you know, as Americans, we was born here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So again, we are Americans, and we are considered black because, as my man said in the video, that's just what they want to. That's what they think we want to be identified as. But when you travel, again, I've only been to Mexico, and they say, well, I was an American.
Oh, for sure.
You know what I'm saying?
You
I
better
wasn't
believe
black.
it. You better
No
believe it.
no one referred to me as black. No one referred to us as black. And like he said, whether it was us, my group, which is pretty much the brothers, quote unquote, or it was some white people. They, you know, people in the foreign countries, they don't look at it as, again, black and white. They don't look at it as skin color.
We
They look
all
at it as
Americans.
culture.
Yep.
And so you are your culture, not the hue of your skin or
Right.
your ethnic descent.
Right.
You know, you are the culture that you come from. So, and that's going to be some African culture, some European culture, some American culture. And for us born in America, our culture is American. That's why we're American.
I remember watching what's that woman name? I think her name Abby Phillips or something. And they were, you know, having their debate, you know, the Republicans and Democrats. And so someone said, you know, if Trump can deport them, that means black people, you're next to be deported.
Fear mongering.
Hold up, before you get to fear mongering, where the fuck they deporting us to? Where?
Our own land.
Where? Where we get deported?
And the crazy part is, a lot of that rhetoric comes from individuals who are bona fide immigrants.
It was.
People who actually migrated from another country.
That Navarra
to
lady
America.
was the one that said that. I think
Right.
she's on The View as well.
They come from another country to America,
Mm-hmm.
their ancestors, and then like literally they come. Then they're like the second, the third, or fourth generation of said family that were immigrants,
Mm-hmm.
and they feel more American than the people who are native us to this
Mhm.
land, and telling us that we're going to get deported.
Yeah, like so
Like,
you know
if
who's
anyone
next?
get deported, it's going to be y'all.
Talk about that means you what black people are next. They're going to deport us where? Please let us know. We would love to know where y'all going to send us to.
But again, the use of language, black,
Exactly.
black people, like, nah, we're all
Exactly.
American.
We're all Americans.
So you just got to be conscious of that. Like, if you're still identifying as black and white, when we see it on camera, when we see it in the media, you know, that's quote unquote the game, the psychological warfare that's
Mhm.
being shoved down our throats on a daily basis. Again, it's all storytelling. So what story are you going to buy into? That's really the question here.
And we had a topic. We did a whole segment on language, and that's why
Mhm.
we did that. You know, because that's why that was one of our first episodes that we did on the podcast, because it's very important. And
Language is important.
that's what we was trying to express to people. Language is important, and if you take note to the topics that we discuss, there's a clear thread through all of it, and it's connected,
Right.
and it's all woven together. You know, so you know, just keep in mind, like we're not just coming up with topics, pulling them out our ass. You know, we're giving it some thought, and we're really trying to bring
Right.
some knowledge to you guys, and challenge the way that we think and strive to be better, do better, talk better, and just, you know, have better outcomes.
Now, on that note, you know, we do like to be serious, but we also like to have some fun.
Of
too.
course.
So this next clip right here
Of
is
course.
definitely in line with that.
You know,
When people say where you from?
America.
No, where's your country?
My country is America. I was born in New York, raised in.
Where your parents from?
My parents are from New York.
Americans, they don't know where they're from, you know.
Americans don't know where they're from.
It's a mystery.
It's a mystery.
Because you must be Caribbean or African or.
What do you mean
something.
Caribbean?
Oh,
Isn't
you-
Caribbean a part of America as well?
There's some in there.
Jamaica?
It's not really American,
Yeah, but they're not.
it's near. It's near, but it's not.
What continent is the Caribbean in? Jamaica? What continent is that?
Why are you running? LOL. You're trying to draw me out.
I'm asking you a simple question. Where you from? You from Congo?
And Jamaican.
And Jamaica. What continent is Jamaica in?
If you don't answer that, I'm leaving you.
I just want to know what continent Jamaica's in.
I didn't pass geography.
Oh my gosh!
You're American at the end of the day. No matter how you try to slice the cake, Caribbean, Jamaica, like we American, man.
And what people don't realize,
We was here.
there's a North America, there's a Central America, and there's a South America. So all of those
Are Americans.
natives of those lands, we are all Americans. Americans. That's why that whole controversy about the Gulf of Mexico and Trump changing it to the Gulf of America, it kind of makes more sense for it to be the Gulf of America because it's shared by South America, Central America, and North America. So it makes more sense to call it the Gulf of America. It doesn't have to be isolated to the Gulf of Mexico, whatever the case may be. But once again,
But again, language.
language,
You feel me?
language.
But again, why are we trying to divide? It's all America at the end of the day.
We all got to come together.
We all Americans. If we're born in this continent, you are an American, whether it's North, Central, or South.
And you could be
You're an
proud of
American.
that.
Right.
I'm proud to be an American. At least I know I'm free. What's the song? God bless the USA.
So again, we Americans. On that
Yes,
note,
he is.
we
To the next time, we'll holler.
Peace.